She collapsed in the rain after her divorce and woke up in a millionaire's arms. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain had begun as a whisper over Portland, Oregon, and then, without warning, it became a steady sheet of cold water falling from a heavy gray sky. Streetlights glowed like blurred halos, and the pavement shimmered as if it were made of black glass. At nearly 9 o'clock at night, the courthouse steps were almost empty. Maya Turner stood at the bottom of those steps, her breath unsteady and white in the thin December air. In her hands was a manila envelope containing her finalized divorce papers. The ink had not even dried completely. Her fingers shook, not from the cold alone, but from everything that had led her here. For years of trying to make a marriage work. For years of holding herself together in silence. And now, the last page of it all tucked under her arm, already soft at the edges from the rain. Her coat was too thin for the weather, the kind bought secondhand and worn through at the lining. Water soaked into her sleeves until they clung to her skin. Cars rushed by on the distant avenue, their tires hissing along the wet road. No one looked her way. No one noticed the young woman walking without direction, shoulders curled inward, like someone trying to make herself smaller against the world. She stepped into a crosswalk, blinking rain from her eyelashes. The city lights fractured in the puddles around her feet. Her legs felt strangely light, and for a moment she wondered if she had eaten anything since morning. She tried to inhale, tried to steady her steps, but the night tilted slightly. Papers slipped from her hands and scattered across the slick concrete. She bent to grab them, but the world dimmed at the edges. Her heart raced. Her breath shortened. The cold rushed deeper. Then her skin. Then everything went black. A car door slammed somewhere near her. Heavy footsteps splashed through the puddles. "Hey, miss, can you hear me?" The voice was low, urgent, close. Arms slid beneath her just before her knees hit the ground. She felt herself lifted, her head resting against the solid warmth of someone's chest. The scent of rain mixed with something faintly like cedar from his jacket. She wanted to ask who he was, but her lips refused to form the words. "You are going to be all right. Stay with me," the voice said again. A call was made, quick and calm. The man shifted her weight carefully, shielding her from the rain with his own body. She could feel the steady rhythm of his breathing, a contrast to her own shallow gasps. Sirens grew in the distance, moving closer. Blue and red lights flickered against the wet pavement. "Help is on the way. You are safe now," he whispered, almost as if he had said it to someone long ago. But Maya did not hear the rest. She slipped back into the dark, held firmly in the arms of a stranger whose name she did not know, unaware that her life had just collided with a world she never imagined. The soft beeping of medical monitors echoed through the quiet emergency room when Maya finally opened her eyes. The light above her was bright and steady, nothing like the fractured streetlights she remembered before everything went dark. The blankets were warm, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant, and for a moment she did not know where she was or how she had gotten there. A nurse noticed she was awake and stepped closer. "You fainted out in the rain. An ambulance brought you in. Do you remember anything?" Maya tried to speak, but her throat felt dry. A few scattered images drifted back to her. Papers slipping from her hands. The cold pavement. Arms catching her just before she fell. A calm voice telling her to breathe. I do not remember much," she whispered. The curtain slid aside, and a doctor entered. He was in his mid-40s with kind eyes and a clipboard tucked under one arm. "Good evening, Maya. I am Dr. Avery Barnes. You passed out due to a combination of cold exposure, low blood sugar, and exhaustion. You are stable now." Maya nodded weakly. Dr. Barnes examined her wrists and frowned slightly at the faint bruises that peeked from beneath her sleeve. "These marks look older. Were you harmed recently?" Her breath froze. A familiar wave of defensiveness rose in her chest, the same instinct she had learned to carry during her marriage. "No, they are nothing." Dr. Barnes hesitated, wanting to ask more, but he simply made a note on her chart. "All right. If you experience dizziness or pain, press the call button. You should rest for a while." Before leaving, he added, "There was a man who stayed in the waiting area until you were admitted. He did not give his name." Maya's brows pulled together. "A man?" "Yes. He arrived with the ambulance. He made sure you were taken care of, but did not want to be identified." The doctor stepped out, and the curtain swayed behind him. Maya sank deeper into the pillows, trying to hold onto the fading memory of the stranger's voice. Warm, steady, familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. She wondered if it had been a passerby or someone sent by Mark. The thought chilled her more than the December rain. Outside the sliding doors of the emergency entrance, a black SUV sat parked beneath the awning. Cole Harrington leaned forward in the driver's seat, his hands wrapped around a cup of untouched coffee. The hospital lights reflected faintly across the windshield as he watched the doors, making sure Maya was safe before leaving. He should have gone home. It was late, and his assistant had already called twice about the next morning's meetings. But every time he tried to drive away, he saw again the moment she collapsed on the street, the moment he reached her just in time. It had echoed too closely to a night he had never been able to forget, a night when he had been a few seconds too late for someone else he loved. He glanced at the small object on the passenger seat. Maya's medical wristband had slipped off during the emergency ride. He had picked it up without thinking. Her name was printed neatly across the thin plastic. He exhaled slowly, debating whether to bring it inside. The last thing he wanted was to frighten her or seem intrusive. She was already fragile, standing at a crossroads she had not chosen. He could sense it in the way she clutched the papers scattered at her feet, the way she whispered as if the night itself might break her further. Cole tapped the wristband with his thumb, hesitating. He told himself he would return it later. For now, what mattered was that she was safe. Inside, Maya stared at the ceiling, trying to steady her breathing. She remembered the stranger's voice again, how he spoke as if he meant every word. She wondered why someone would stop for her. People rarely stopped. People rarely noticed. Her eyes drifted toward the window where rain still traced long lines down the glass. She pulled the blanket up to her chin, whispering to herself, "Thank you, whoever you are." Outside, Cole finally started his engine, but not before glancing at the hospital doors one last time. He had no idea if she would ever learn his name. He only knew that he hoped she would be all right when the sun came up. And neither of them knew that this single night, born out of cold rain and exhaustion, was the quiet beginning of something that would change both of their lives. Morning arrived slowly, slipping through the thin hospital curtains in a pale stripe of winter light. Maya sat up with effort, her muscles stiff from the cold and from the night that had drained her completely. A nurse brought her a small tray of oatmeal, fruit, and a cup of warm tea. She thanked her, though her voice barely rose above a whisper. After a few hours of observation, Dr. Barnes approved her discharge. "You need rest, warmth, and real meals," he said gently. "Your body has been under stress for far too long." Maya nodded, even though she had no idea where she would go next. Her apartment was no longer hers. Her savings were thin. Her phone battery had died overnight. Everything in her life felt scattered, the same way her divorce papers had scattered across the wet pavement the night before. When the hospital doors slid open, a gust of cold December air rushed in. She stepped outside with her small tote bag pressed close to her chest. The city was quieter than usual for a weekday morning. Gray clouds still hung low, as if the storm had not fully left. She walked toward the bus stop, pulling her coat tighter around herself. The fabric was still damp from the night before. Every step made her legs ache. She had been running on adrenaline, and now that it had faded, a deep exhaustion settled inside her. At the bus stop bench, she sat down, exhaling shakily. One hand pressed lightly against her stomach as if to steady herself. She felt the emptiness of the morning, the hollow craving for stability and a place to land. Her fingers brushed the inside of her coat pocket and closed around something cold. A key. She pulled it out slowly. Not a house key. It was the small hospital locker key they had given her. She tucked it back, feeling foolish. She had hoped for something else, something that explained the stranger from last night. The bus arrived with a hiss of brakes, and she boarded, choosing a seat near the back. The hum of the engine vibrated beneath her feet. Buildings rolled by the window, and her blurred reflection stared back at her. She tried to think logically. She needed to retrieve her belongings from her old apartment. She needed to find a temporary place to stay. She needed to find work soon. but each thought felt heavier than the last. When the bus stopped near her street, she stepped out and walked the familiar path toward the building. The walk was short, but her chest tightened with each step. The landlord had told her last night that Mark had stopped paying rent months before the separation. She had not known. She had not been allowed to know much of anything. Reaching the entrance, she tried her key out of habit. It did not fit. The lock had been changed. She knocked, and after a minute, the building manager opened the door slightly. His expression was sympathetic but firm. "Maya, I am sorry. I really am. But I cannot let you back in without clearance. Your belongings are boxed inside. I can have them brought down later today." She nodded slowly. "Thank you." He closed the door again, leaving her standing alone in the cold hallway. Maya stepped back outside and onto the front steps. She sat down, pulling her coat tightly around her as a thin wind cut across the street. Cars passed. People walked by. No one stopped. The weight of her new reality pressed onto her shoulders. She lowered her head into her hands. A few moments later, a shadow stretched across the ground in front of her. She sensed someone standing nearby and lifted her gaze. A man stood several feet away, holding an umbrella. His coat was dark, tailored, and familiar in a way she did not immediately understand. The morning light softened the sharp lines of his face. He did not step closer. He simply held out the umbrella toward her. "You look cold," he said quietly. The voice struck her like a chord she had heard only once yet somehow recognized. Her breath caught. "It was you," she whispered. "You were the one who helped me last night." He did not answer immediately, but the steadiness in his eyes told her everything. "I wanted to make sure you were all right after you left the hospital," he said. "Nothing more." She stared at him, confused and overwhelmed. "Why? You do not even know me." He shook his head. "Last night, you needed someone. That was enough." Maya swallowed hard, her voice trembling. I do not even know your name." He hesitated as if choosing whether to reveal it. "Cole," he said finally. "My name is Cole Harrington." The name meant nothing to her yet, not with its full weight. All she saw was the man who had carried her out of the rain. But within hours, she would discover who he truly was. And nothing in her life would ever be the same for a long moment. Maya simply stared at him, letting the name settle like a drop of water rippling across the surface of a lake. Cole Harrington. She repeated it silently, trying to attach meaning to the steady-eyed man offering her shelter from the cold. "Thank you," she murmured, taking the umbrella. Her fingers brushed his briefly, and Cole stepped back an inch, giving her plenty of space. "You do not need to stand out here," he said. "You have had a difficult night. Let me at least walk you somewhere warm." Maya hesitated. The instinct to refuse rose immediately. She had spent years learning not to depend on anyone. Dependence had always led to control, and control had led to the slow collapse of her life. But there was something in Cole's voice that was different. Calmer. Nothing pushy. Nothing demanding. "I just need a moment," she whispered. He nodded. "Take as long as you need. I will wait." The simplicity of his words disarmed her more than any dramatic gesture could have. She looked down at the wet steps beneath her feet, then back up at him. "I am not sure where to go." "You do not have to decide that right now," Cole said. "Let us just get you out of the cold. There is a small coffee shop 2 blocks from here. It is quiet in the mornings." Maya finally stood, steadying herself. "All right." They walked side by side, not touching, not speaking for the first minute. The wind pushed softly at the umbrella, and the city blocks passed slowly. When they reached the shop, Cole pulled the door open and stepped aside so she could enter first. Warm air and the scent of fresh pastries enveloped her as they took a small table near the window. After ordering her a hot tea, he sat across from her. "How much do you remember from last night?" She wrapped her cold fingers around the mug. "Rain. Falling. And someone telling me I would be all right. I could hear your voice, but I never saw your face clearly." Cole's expression softened. "You collapsed before I reached you. I called the ambulance and stayed until they admitted you." "Why?" she asked again, unable to understand it. He paused, as if searching for the right words. "Because I was there. Because you needed help. That is all." She lowered her eyes. "I am sorry. You should not have had to do that." "You did not burden me," he replied calmly. "Saving someone is not a burden." The sincerity unsettled her. She was used to apologies falling on resentful ears, used to her needs being framed as inconveniences. Cole's steady kindness felt unfamiliar, almost disorienting. She took a sip of tea and exhaled slowly. I do not have a place to stay. Cole nodded gently. You mentioned your landlord changed the locks. Do you have a friend or relative nearby? Not anymore, she said. My mother's old friend offered her couch last night, but she cannot host longer. And I cannot go back to my ex-husband's place. That is not an option. Cole's jaw tightened slightly, an emotion flickering beneath the surface. You should not have to worry about that. If you would like, I can help you arrange a temporary housing option. Something safe and private. Maya tensed immediately. I cannot stay with you. Cole blinked, then shook his head lightly. No, I would never suggest that. His tone remained steady, respectful. My building has guest units. Fully furnished. Short term. They are used often for visiting partners or executives. You could stay there until you get your situation organized. No strings attached. Maya's breath caught. That is too much. I barely know you. That is why there would be a contract, Cole said. A simple one. So you do not feel like you owe me anything. The mention of a contract made her shoulders drop with relief. Structure felt safer than favors. You would not be living with me, he reiterated. You would simply be renting a furnished unit short-term, with zero cost until you are stable. She stared out the window as snowflakes began to fall over the city. The world looked soft and gray, like a painting without outlines. She wanted to say no. It would have been easier, but she had nowhere else. When she finally looked at him, her voice was quiet but firm. I will think about it. Of course, he said. You decide when you are ready. As he stood to let her breathe, the television mounted above the counter began playing a local news segment. A photo appeared on the screen. A familiar face. A familiar name. Cole Harrington attends charity events supporting domestic abuse survivors. Maya stared at the screen, then at the man standing in front of her. Her hand trembled around the mug. You are that Cole Harrington, she whispered. The quiet, steady stranger who carried her out of the rain was one of the most influential men in the city. Cole exhaled softly. I was going to tell you, just not like this. And in that moment, the weight of their two worlds collided. Hers cracked and fragile, his polished and powerful, setting the stage for everything that would come next. For a few seconds, the noise of the coffee shop faded beneath the weight of that revelation. Maya could only stare at Cole, the realization settling over her like a second winter chill. The man who had lifted her from the rain, who had sat through the night to ensure she was safe, was not simply a stranger with a steady voice. He was Cole Harrington, the quiet philanthropist whose name often appeared in the background of local news segments about community programs, youth shelters, and hospital donations. Maya gripped the warm mug with both hands, grounding herself. I did not know. I never expected, her voice faltered. Cole sat back down slowly, his expression thoughtful rather than tense. I understand this is overwhelming. I never meant to hide anything. Last night was not about who I am. It was about helping someone who needed help. But this changes things, she whispered. It does not have to, he replied gently. The honesty in his tone steadied her, even as her thoughts spun. She had spent years around a man who was wealthy but cruel, powerful but careless with her feelings. She did not know how to make sense of someone who seemed to be the opposite. A silence settled between them, soft and cautious. Outside, the snow thickened into a light flurry, turning the sidewalk into a thin carpet of white. People hurried by in coats and scarves, unaware of the quiet turning point occurring by the window. Cole spoke again, slower this time. If staying in the guest unit feels uncomfortable, we can find something else. A different building. A short-term rental. It does not have to be connected to me at all. Maya shook her head slightly. It is not about the place. I am just trying to understand why you are helping me. He held her gaze for a long moment. Because I know what it looks like when someone is trying to hold their world together alone. And because I believe that no one should face moments like these without support. Those words lingered, gentle and unexpected. She felt something in her chest unclench, as if the tension she had carried for months had shifted by just an inch. When they left the coffee shop, the air outside had softened with the snowfall, transforming the street into something almost peaceful. Cole walked a respectful distance beside her, not intruding, not leading, but present. Would it help to go by your apartment again? He asked quietly. She nodded. I need to get my boxes if they are ready. The walk was slower than before, partly because the sidewalks had grown slick, partly because Maya kept glancing over at him, still trying to reconcile the man beside her with the name on the news. When they reached the apartment building, the manager was already waiting. 2 cardboard boxes sat neatly beside him. "These were cleared out early this morning," he said. "I am sorry again for all the trouble." Maya thanked him and knelt to check her belongings. A few clothes, some personal documents, a photograph of her mother tucked between 2 sweaters. Everything else, including most of the furniture, had belonged to Mark and would remain in storage until the legal process finished. She tried lifting one of the boxes and winced. It was heavier than she remembered. "I can take that," Cole offered. She hesitated. "You really do not have to." "I know," he said, "but let me help." She released the box, and he lifted it with ease. They walked down the steps carefully, snow crunching beneath their shoes. For the first time in months, Maya felt something close to relief, not because the burden was gone, but because she was not carrying it entirely alone. When they reached the sidewalk, Cole paused. "You mentioned you wanted time to decide. How about this? I will take these boxes to the guest unit. You do not have to stay there. You can choose anywhere you want. But your belongings will be somewhere safe, and you will not need to carry them around all day." Maya looked at him, studying his face for any trace of expectation or hidden pressure. She found none. "All right," she said softly. "Just for now." Cole nodded. "Then let us make sure you get something warm to eat after this. You have had a long couple of days." They walked toward his SUV, snow still falling lightly around them. And though Maya's world remained uncertain, and though she had no idea what tomorrow would look like, one truth slowly settled into her heart. For the first time in a long while, she was not entirely alone in the cold. The drive to Cole's building took less than 15 minutes, but to Maya it felt like a quiet stretch of time suspended between 2 different versions of her life. She watched the city pass by through the window, the snowfall blurring the lights into soft halos. Her belongings rested in the back seat, and every so often she glanced at them, still reminding herself that this was real, that she was truly leaving behind everything familiar. Cole said little during the ride, giving her space. When he did speak, his tone remained steady and calm. "If you feel uncomfortable at any point, tell me. You owe me nothing by being here." His reassurance eased the tension in her shoulders. "I appreciate that," she replied quietly. When they arrived, the building rose tall and modern against the snowy skyline. The entrance was lined with small lights that reflected off the icy pavement. It looked like a place from another world, polished, warm, safe. A place she never imagined stepping into. Inside, the lobby was calm and softly lit. A fireplace glowed near the seating area, and the air held a faint scent of cedar. As they walked toward the elevators, a member of the staff greeted Cole with a respectful nod. "Good morning, Mr. Harrington." Cole acknowledged him politely, then looked toward Maya to make sure she was not overwhelmed. She stood a little straighter, doing her best to seem composed despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. In the elevator, she lifted her eyes toward him. "Do people here know who you are?" "Most of them," he admitted. "I own part of the building, and my company manages the residential floors." Maya exhaled slowly. That explains a lot. When they reached the guest floor hallway, Cole led her to a unit at the end. He unlocked it and stepped aside, letting her enter first. The interior was warm, with soft beige walls, a small but elegant living space, and a kitchen stocked with basic essentials. "It is simple," Cole said, setting the box down gently near the entryway. "But it is private. It is yours for as long as you need it." Maya walked in slowly, her fingers brushing the back of the sofa, the edge of the counter, the knob of a cabinet. Everything felt foreign, yet welcoming in a way she had not experienced in years. "There is a small grocery store across the street," Cole added, "and a security desk on the ground floor. If you ever feel unsafe or uncomfortable, they will help you." Maya turned toward him, the gratitude in her eyes almost overwhelming. "I do not know how to thank you." "You do not have to," Cole said. "You are starting over. Everyone deserves a safe start." His words settled deep within her, stirring something she could not define. It was not pity or charity. It was something steadier, something that felt like respect. Cole checked the thermostat, then stepped back toward the door. "I will let you rest. You have had a long day." Just as he reached for the handle, Maya's voice stopped him. "Cole." He paused. "Why did you come back to my apartment this morning?" she asked softly. He looked down for a moment, as if choosing his answer carefully. "Because you walked out of that hospital alone." And I have seen too many people walk out alone and never recover. I did not want that for you. His voice held no dramatic weight, just quiet truth. Maya's throat tightened. Thank you. Cole offered her a gentle nod. If you need anything, anything at all, you can call me. But only if you choose to. You are in control here. And with that, he left, the soft click of the door echoing briefly before fading into the stillness of the room. Maya stood alone in the quiet apartment, her hands resting on the back of a chair. Snow continued to fall outside the window, blanketing the city. She let out a slow breath and allowed herself a moment to absorb everything. For the first time in a long time, she felt a small warmth rise inside her, subtle but unmistakable. She was safe. She was starting over. And somewhere in the same building, a man she barely knew had made it possible without asking for anything in return. It felt unreal, yet it was the first real thing she had experienced in months. The next morning arrived with a quiet stillness that felt almost foreign to Maya. She woke in the guest unit's soft bed, wrapped in warmth instead of damp blankets or the harsh chill of the night before. For a moment she lay there, listening to the hum of the heater and letting herself breathe. No shouting, no slammed doors, no tension coiling inside her chest. Just stillness. She sat up slowly, adjusting to the unfamiliar surroundings. The kitchen counter held a small basket she had not noticed the night before. Tea packets, instant oatmeal, bottled water, and a card that simply read, "For your first morning. Rest well." There was no name on it, but she knew exactly who had placed it there. After a warm shower, she dressed in the cleanest clothes from her box and stepped into the living room. The early daylight shone through the tall window, revealing a gentle layer of snow resting on the city below. She wrapped her arms around herself as she stood there, letting the view settle into her mind. She needed a plan, something steady to hold on to. She would look for temporary work, update her resume, figure out the next steps in the legal process. But beneath all of that, she could not deny that the safety of this place had given her room to breathe for the first time in months. A soft knock at the door startled her. When she opened it, Cole stood in the hallway, dressed in a dark winter coat with snow melting on the shoulders. He held a paper bag in one hand. "I brought breakfast," he said with a calm smile. "Only if you want it, of course." Maya stepped back so he could enter. "You really did not have to do that." "I know," he replied simply. "But I was passing by the bakery downstairs and thought of you." He placed the bag on the counter and began unpacking it. A warm croissant, a small fruit cup, and a cup of chamomile tea. Maya watched, unsure how to accept this level of consideration without feeling indebted. "You can sit," Cole said gently, noticing her hesitation. "I will not stay long." She sat at the small table while he stood near the counter, giving her space. "Thank you," she said after a bite of the croissant. "I mean it. I am glad you are here safely," Cole replied. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," she admitted. "Still overwhelmed. Still trying to understand everything that is happening." "That is normal," he said. "When life shifts this quickly, it takes time to find your footing again." Maya looked down at her hands. "I do not want to depend on you. You have already done more than enough." "You are not depending on me," Cole said calmly. "You are rebuilding. There is a difference." His words softened something inside her again. After a pause, Cole reached into his coat and pulled out a small folder. "I brought something for you. Only if you want to look at it." She accepted the folder and opened it. Inside were 3 printed listings for short-term administrative positions in nearby offices and community centers. All entry-level, all stable, all within walking distance or 1 bus ride from the building. "These places hire regularly," Cole explained. "They are good environments. No pressure, no intense corporate culture. I know someone at each location, but you would be applying entirely on your own merit." Maya blinked, stunned. "You did this morning?" "I had an early meeting and remembered you mentioned wanting work. I thought this might help you start." She looked up, her voice barely audible. "Why are you being this kind?" He held her gaze for a moment before answering. "Because you deserve a fair start. And because kindness does not cost anything." The room grew quiet, filled only by the soft hum of the heater. Maya closed the folder gently, pressing it to her chest. "I will apply," she said. "I need to move forward." Cole nodded with quiet approval. "Good. I believe you will do well." He checked the time and stepped toward the door. "I have to head to the office now. You can call or text if you need anything, but only if you choose to." "I will be fine," Maya said softly. Thank you, Cole. He paused with one hand on the door. You are welcome. When he left, the door closed with a soft click, leaving her alone in the warm room. She sat for a long moment, staring at the folder of job listings, feeling a mix of fear and hope stirring inside her. She had stepped into this new chapter reluctantly, dragged by circumstance. But for the first time, she felt herself leaning, just slightly, toward something better, toward the possibility that safety, stability, and kindness might still exist in her world. And that maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to reach for them. The next few days moved quietly, almost cautiously, as if the city itself sensed that Maya needed gentler steps while she rebuilt her footing. She spent her mornings reviewing the job listings Cole had given her and her afternoons updating her resume at the small desk by the window. Each time she typed her name at the top of the page, she felt both fear and determination rise in her chest. On the fourth morning, she received a call from the community center listed on the second page of the folder. The director, a warm-voiced woman named Mrs. Hendricks, offered her an interview for an administrative assistant position. Maya agreed immediately, her hands trembling after she hung up. She walked to the interview wearing her neatest clothes and carrying a folder with printed copies of her resume. The community center was modest and lively, with children's artwork on the walls and volunteers bustling in and out. Maya stepped into the small office and waited as Mrs. Hendricks finished a phone call. Thank you for coming in, Maya, the woman said with a bright smile. Your application was thoughtful. Tell me a bit about yourself. Maya answered as clearly as she could, careful to keep her voice steady. She spoke about her organizational skills, her experience assisting her mother at school events, and her desire to work in a place that helped people. She avoided mentioning Mark or the hardships of the past months. Those details no longer felt like they defined her. Mrs. Hendricks listened attentively. You have a calm presence. That is something we value here. When the interview ended, Maya walked out into the crisp afternoon air. She felt lighter, as if each step carried new possibility. By the time she returned to the guest unit, Cole was already home. She knew because the elevator paused briefly at his floor, and she heard the soft sound of his footsteps turning down the hallway above before she continued to her level. Later that evening, she received a text message from an unknown number. This is Cole. I hope the interview went well. If you want to talk about it, I will be in the lounge on the 12th floor. No pressure. Maya stared at the message, uncertain whether to join him. Part of her wanted to stay inside the safety of her unit, but another part felt ready for a small step forward. She put on her coat and rode the elevator up. The 12th floor lounge was softly lit with warm lamps and tall windows overlooking the snowy cityscape. Cole sat with a cup of black tea, reading through documents. When he noticed her, he closed the folder instantly. Hi, he said, rising slightly out of his chair. I am glad you came. She sat across from him, folding her hands in her lap. The interview went better than I expected, she said. I am glad, he replied. How do you feel about it? Hopeful, she admitted. It felt like a place where I could start over. That matters more than anything else, Cole said. For a moment they sat quietly, the city lights flickering below them like scattered stars. Maya felt the weight of the past slipping just a little farther away. Then she noticed something she had overlooked before. The staff passing through the lounge gave Cole small nods of respect, but none interrupted or hovered. He carried authority without demanding attention. It was a stark contrast to Mark, who used power like a weapon. Cole caught her observing and asked gently, Is something on your mind? She hesitated. People treat you differently. They treat the position differently, he corrected. Not me. And I try not to let it change how I move through the world. His sincerity steadied her again. He leaned back slightly. If the community center offers you the job, and I hope they will, I want you to know something. Anything you accomplish from this point forward will be because of your work, not because of me. His words struck her more deeply than he realized. She swallowed hard, her voice softer. That means more than you know. He nodded, understanding without pressing for details. After a few minutes, Maya stood. I should get some rest. Thank you for checking on me. Anytime, he replied. And Maya? She paused at the doorway. You are doing well. Do not forget that. His voice was steady and warm, and it followed her all the way back to the elevator. As the doors closed, she felt a quiet sense of pride she had not felt in years. She was stepping into her own life again, one careful, hopeful step at a time. 2 days after the interview, Maya received a call while she was making tea in the guest unit's small kitchen. Her heart raced as soon as she saw the number. She answered with a trembling voice. "Maya, this is Mrs. Hendricks. I wanted to let you know that the team was impressed with you. If you are still interested, we would like to offer you the administrative assistant position." The words washed over her like warm sunlight. "Yes," she said breathlessly. "I am very grateful. Thank you so much. Your first day would be Monday. We will walk through the tasks together. Welcome to the team." After the call ended, Maya stood still, letting the moment settle in her chest. It was not a glamorous job, not a high-paying position, but it was honest work and a chance to rebuild, something she had not believed she would find so soon. She texted Cole to let him know. His reply came quickly. "I am proud of you. You earned this." Later that afternoon, she stepped out to buy a few essentials. When she returned, the elevator was already occupied by 2 women she had seen in the building before. They were dressed elegantly, chatting casually. When the doors closed, one of them glanced at Maya's grocery bag, then at her outfit, and whispered something to her friend. Her friend's eyebrows lifted in recognition. "Is she the one staying in the guest floor near Mr. Harrington?" The first woman lowered her voice, but not enough. "Yes, I heard she showed up out of nowhere. People said she moved in right after he brought her home one night." Maya felt her stomach tighten. She kept her eyes on the illuminated floor numbers, pretending not to hear. "I wonder who she really is," the woman continued. "It must be something personal if he is letting her stay there. Maybe he likes her," her friend said. "Or maybe she is taking advantage of him." The elevator dinged softly, and the doors opened on the 10th floor. Maya stepped out even though her floor was 2 levels higher. She needed to breathe. Their words clung to her like cold air. As she walked down the quiet hallway, the pressure in her chest grew. She had finally found calm, and now it felt threatened by whispers she had no control over. By the time she reached her unit, her hands were shaking. She set the grocery bag on the counter and leaned against the sink, trying to steady herself. Her mind spun with echoes of their voices. Taking advantage. Showing up out of nowhere. Who is she really? The worst part was that their voices sounded too much like Mark's. The cruel accusations he had used to keep her small. Hours later, her phone buzzed with a message from Cole. "I have a late meeting tonight, but I will be home after 9. If you want to talk about your first day preparations, we can." She stared at the screen, hesitating. She did not want him to know about the whispers. She did not want him to think she was a problem. Instead, she typed back, "Thank you. I am fine. I will see how tomorrow goes." She placed the phone down and sat on the couch, wrapping her arms around herself. The room felt colder than usual. The glow of the city lights outside cast long shadows across the floor. She knew Cole meant well. His kindness had been steady, patient, and generous. But people talked. They always talked. And if she was not careful, she could become someone else's rumor instead of someone building a new life. For the first time since she had arrived, doubt crept into her heart. Was she overstaying her welcome? Was she becoming a burden? Was she reading too much into Cole's kindness? As these questions swirled inside her, she realized something even harder to face. She was afraid. Afraid that one wrong step could bring everything crashing down again. Afraid that history could repeat itself with a different man, even if Cole had shown her nothing but respect. When she finally lay in bed that night, sleep came slowly. She stared at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the heater. Outside, snow continued to fall softly across the city, covering everything in white. But inside, the quiet was troubled. And somewhere in her chest, the seeds of doubt, planted by strangers with careless words, began to take root. She did not know yet that this small fracture, this moment of insecurity, would soon grow into a misunderstanding large enough to test everything she and Cole had begun to build. Maya's first day of work at the community center came with a mixture of nerves and quiet determination. Mrs. Hendricks greeted her warmly, walked her through the basic tasks, and introduced her to the small staff. The atmosphere felt genuine and grounded, filled with people trying to help one another. It was exactly the kind of environment Maya hoped for. But even as she organized donation forms and answered phone calls, the whispers from the elevator replayed in her mind. They clung to her thoughts like a shadow, dulling the sense of accomplishment she should have felt. By the time her shift ended, the winter sky had already darkened. She walked back to the building through the lightly falling snow. Each step felt heavier than the last. The moment she entered the lobby, she noticed two residents speaking near the fireplace. Their conversation quieted when she passed. One of them watched her with a knowing expression. Her heartbeat quickened. She hurried into the elevator and pressed the floor button, but her hands were unsteady. When the doors closed, she exhaled shakily. She did not want to feel this way. She had worked for everything she had endured today, and yet people's assumptions were pulling her back into old fears she thought she had left behind. When she stepped into her unit, she set her bag down and sat on the sofa, trying to slow her racing thoughts. Her phone buzzed with a message. Cole, I hope your first day went well. I will be home earlier tonight if you want to talk. She stared at the screen. The thought of opening up to him felt both tempting and terrifying. She typed a reply but deleted it twice. She did not want him to see her insecurity. She did not want him to feel responsible for how others talked. Instead she sent, "It went well. Thank you." But the message felt incomplete, and the tightness in her chest did not ease. Minutes passed, and she remained on the sofa, staring at the floor. She tried breathing exercises she had learned online, but every inhale trembled. Finally, she stood and decided to step outside the unit for a moment, hoping the hallway's quiet would calm her. She opened the door and froze. Cole was there, standing just a few feet away, as if he had been about to knock. He held a small folder in one hand and looked surprised to see her. "I was just checking on you," he said softly. "You left your shift earlier than expected. I wanted to make sure you were all right." Maya stepped back, overwhelmed by the coincidence. I just needed some air." Cole studied her for a moment. "Something is bothering you." It was not a question. It was an observation spoken with quiet certainty. Her pulse quickened. "It is nothing. It is just the first day nerves." "Maya," he said gently, "I know when someone is holding something heavy inside." She swallowed hard, fighting the pressure behind her ribs. "I do not want to be a problem for you." "You are not," Cole replied. "Not even close." Her breath shook. "People here are talking. About me. About why I am staying on the guest floor. About you and me." Understanding settled in Cole's expression. He took a step closer, but not too close. "What did they say?" "That I showed up out of nowhere. That I might be taking advantage of you. That I am here because of something personal." She looked down, her voice tightening. "I do not want to ruin your reputation. I do not want to be a burden." Cole exhaled slowly, his expression shifting to something calm and resolute. "You are not a burden," he said firmly. "And anyone who chooses to talk without knowing the truth is speaking from assumptions, not facts. You owe no one an explanation." "But people think. Let them think," Cole said gently. "Your life is not defined by rumors. And neither is mine." His words were steady, grounded, and unwavering. Maya blinked back the sting in her eyes. "I worked so hard to find a safe place. I do not want to lose it because people misunderstand." He held her gaze, sincerity shining through every word. "You will not lose anything. Not because of them. Not while you are rebuilding." For a moment, they stood in the quiet hallway, the warm lighting softening the edges of the moment. Then Cole handed her the folder he had been carrying. "I brought you something. It is a set of documents that might help with your next steps. Housing applications, low-cost legal support, and information about survivor advocacy programs. You do not have to use any of it, but I wanted you to have options." Maya accepted the folder with both hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "You do not need to face this alone," Cole said softly. "Not anymore." And for the first time that day, her breath finally steadied. The doubt planted by strangers had not disappeared, but something stronger had begun to grow in its place. Trust. Not built on obligation. Not built on fear. But built on steady kindness and quiet support. And though neither of them said it out loud, this moment marked a turning point. One that would carry them into the most fragile and revealing chapter of their connection. The following week settled into a steady rhythm. Maya woke early for her shifts at the community center, learned new tasks quickly, and found comfort in the simple routines of answering phones, filing documents, and helping visitors navigate the building. Each day she felt more capable, more rooted, and more present in her own life. The whispers in the building had not stopped completely, but they no longer held the same power. Cole's words in the hallway replayed in her mind whenever doubt resurfaced. "You are not defined by rumors." Slowly, she began to believe it. One afternoon, near the end of her shift, Mrs. Hendricks approached her. Maya, could you help with something? She asked. We are planning a small outreach event next month. Nothing too large, but we want to support families going through difficult transitions. I would like you to help organize the paperwork. Maya felt a surprised warmth in her chest. I would be glad to. Good, Mrs. Hendricks said. You have a gentle presence. People trust that. The words lingered inside her long after she left for the day. When she returned to the building, she noticed Cole in the lobby speaking with a few residents. He wore a simple dark coat and held a folder under his arm. A couple of the residents nodded respectfully as they walked away. Cole turned just as she approached. Maya, he said, his tone warm. How was work today? It went well, she said with a small smile. They asked me to help with an outreach project. That is wonderful, he replied. You are building something meaningful there. As they waited for the elevator, she felt the familiar, quiet comfort of his presence. The door slid open, and they stepped inside. Cole pressed the button for her floor and then hesitated. There is something I want to talk to you about, he said gently. Only if you are comfortable. She nodded, curious. All right. I have been reviewing financial reports from several nonprofit projects, he explained. One of them involves funding allocations from various donors, including businesses connected to your ex-husband's company. Maya's breath caught softly. Mark, Cole spoke carefully, avoiding anything that might overwhelm her. I do not want to alarm you, but some inconsistencies came up. Nothing dangerous, nothing involving you directly. But I thought you should know, since it may relate to paperwork he had you sign in the past. She looked down at her hands. I always felt like there was something I did not understand about his finances. He kept everything hidden. You are not responsible for his choices, Cole said. But if anything from those documents affects you legally, I want to make sure you have support. The elevator door opened on her floor, but neither of them moved for a moment. Maya took a slow breath. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate that you are being honest. Always, he said. They stepped out, walking a few quiet steps down the hallway. Cole stopped before reaching her door. There is one more thing. The community center's director reached out to me today. Maya's eyes widened. To you? Yes, he said gently. But not about anything negative. She wanted to thank me for recommending their programs. She also mentioned how well you are fitting in. A wave of embarrassment mixed with pride washed over her. I did not know she would say anything. Cole smiled slightly. People notice effort. They notice heart. Maya lowered her gaze for a moment, touched by the words. I really want to do well there. And you are, he said. More than you realize. They reached her door. She placed her hand on the knob, then turned back to him. Cole, I am still learning how to trust my own decisions. And myself. But having stability again, it is helping. I am glad, he replied. That was always the goal. She hesitated before asking. Are you sure you are not doing too much for me? Cole shook his head lightly. You are doing the work. I am just removing obstacles you never should have faced in the first place. A quiet moment passed between them, the kind that felt heavy with unspoken understanding. As Cole stepped back to leave, he added, if you ever want to talk more about the outreach project or anything else, you can find me upstairs or send a message. I will, she said softly. When she closed the door behind her, Maya leaned against it for a moment, letting herself exhale. The space felt warm and grounded again. She walked to the window, watching the slow movement of cars on the street below. For the first time, she felt connected to something bigger than survival. Work, stability, community, and a steady presence who believed in her even before she believed in herself. She did not know what the next chapter would bring, but one truth had grown undeniable. Her life was no longer shaped by fear. It was beginning to be shaped by possibilities. The next week unfolded with a steady rhythm until a single envelope disrupted everything. It arrived at the community center during lunch, addressed to Maya in handwriting she recognized instantly. Her pulse tightened. She carried it into the break room, sat down slowly, and opened it with careful fingers. Inside was a brief notice from a legal office connected to her ex-husband's company. It referenced irregularities in several financial documents she had been pressured to sign years ago. Nothing in the letter accused her of wrongdoing, but the implication that her name was tied to the mess made her chest tighten. Her first instinct was fear. Old habits of silence and self-doubt tried to rise, but she forced herself to breathe. She folded the letter and placed it gently back inside the envelope. On the walk home from work, she kept replaying Cole's words. You are not responsible for his choices. When she entered the building lobby, Cole was speaking with the front desk attendant. As soon as he saw her expression, he excused himself and stepped toward her. Maya? Something happened. She held out the envelope. This came to the center today. He read it carefully, his expression tightening with concern, not anger. You did nothing wrong. This is a standard alert they send when they are reviewing documents. But I understand why it worried you. I do not want to be pulled back into anything he created, Maya whispered. I worked hard to get away from it. And you are away from it, Cole said gently. This does not define you, and you will not face this alone. They moved to a quieter corner near the lounge. Cole sat across from her, setting the letter between them. I have seen similar notices before, he explained. Your signature was likely added to older paperwork because you were married at the time. They are now reviewing the records. If anything needs clarification, we can handle it through proper channels. She asked softly. Cole met her eyes with steady certainty. Yes, you are not defending yourself against anything. You are simply clarifying. And clarity is something we can manage. His calm steadied her. She nodded slowly, feeling the strain in her shoulders ease. A short silence settled before she spoke again. Why do you care this much? Cole's voice remained quiet, not forceful. Because you deserve fairness. Because someone used your trust against you in the past. And because I believe in helping good people. Stand on solid ground again. Her breath caught, not from fear this time, but from the warmth of his sincerity. When they returned to the elevator, 2 residents stepped inside with them. One of them glanced briefly at Maya, then at Cole, and offered a polite nod. There were no whispers this time, no pointed looks. Cole's presence carried a quiet clarity that seemed to soften the assumptions around them. On the ride up, Maya exhaled and said, I was scared earlier. It is normal to feel that way, Cole replied. Fear shows up when the past tries to convince you it is still in control. But it is not. When the doors opened on her floor, he walked with her to her unit. She paused with her hand on the door. Thank you for helping me stay grounded, she said softly. You did that, Cole answered. I only reminded you. Before stepping away, he handed her a small folder from his coat. Inside is contact information for a legal advocate who works with transitional cases. They can review everything with you. No pressure to call them. Just a resource if you want it. She looked down at the folder, then up at him. You always give me choices, not decisions. That is because they should always belong to you, he said. The simplicity of the answer touched her more than he knew. Later that evening, Maya sat at her small table, the letter and the advocate's information spread out before her. For the first time since opening the envelope, she did not feel the urge to hide or run away from the past. Instead, she felt steady, supported, but not overshadowed. She dialed the number for the legal advocate and scheduled an appointment for the following week. When she hung up, she allowed herself a long, steady breath. The past no longer felt like a wall closing in. It felt like something she could finally face. And at the center of that courage was a truth she could no longer ignore. She trusted Cole. Not because he saved her, but because he consistently helped her find her own strength. Something new was forming, slow, careful, but unmistakably real. The following week unfolded with a quiet confidence that Maya had never felt before. She met with the legal advocate Cole recommended, reviewed the documents thoroughly, and learned that her signature had indeed been misused by her ex-husband's company. The advocate assured her that she was legally protected and would not be held responsible. All she needed to do was provide a short statement confirming the timeline of her involvement. When Maya left the meeting, she stepped out into the crisp afternoon air feeling lighter than she had in months. For the first time, the past felt like something she had stepped beyond instead of something chasing her. That evening, she returned to the building with a steady warmth in her chest. She wanted to tell Cole the news. Not because she needed him to fix anything, but because she wanted to share the moment with him. When she reached the 12th floor lounge, she found him standing near the tall windows, looking out at the city. Snow had begun to fall again, drifting softly through the golden glow of the streetlights. Cole turned when he heard her footsteps. Maya, he said, his expression relaxing. How did the appointment go? It went well, she said, unable to contain her smile. They confirmed that I am clear of everything. My signature was used, but I am not responsible for any of it. They are handling the rest. Relief flickered across Cole's face, followed by something gentler. I am glad, he said. You deserved clarity. For a moment, they simply stood there, the quiet of the room wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Maya stepped closer, her voice softer. I feel like I can finally breathe again. You should, Cole replied. You have worked hard to rebuild. Maya looked down at her hands before lifting her gaze again. I wanted to thank you, she said. Not just for the legal help. For everything. For giving me space to find my own way. For not pushing. For believing I could stand on my own. Cole shook his head lightly. You found that strength long before I came along. Maybe, she said softly. But it helps when someone sees it in you. A quiet moment settled between them, filled with something warm and steady. Maya moved to stand beside him at the window. The snow continued to fall gently over the city, blanketing rooftops and sidewalks. This feels like the first peaceful night I have had in a long time, she murmured. It is well-deserved, he said. She looked at him, her voice growing a touch braver. You know, I never imagined my life would cross paths with yours. He smiled faintly. Life has a way of bringing people together in unexpected moments. Maya breathed in slowly. Do you ever think about that night? The night in the rain. I do, he said quietly. More often than you would expect. She held his gaze. If you had not been there, I am glad I was, he said. But remember, you walked forward from that night by your own strength. I only helped you stand for a moment. Maya felt something warm spread inside her chest, something gentle, grounded, and deeply real. A silence followed, soft but full of meaning. Cole looked down briefly before meeting her eyes. There is something else, he said. I wanted to give you something. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small object. When he placed it in her palm, her breath caught. It was the hospital wristband she had lost the night he saved her. He had kept it all this time. Maya looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. You kept this. It reminded me that sometimes people cross our paths for reasons we do not understand right away, he said. And it reminded me of how strong you were, even when you thought you were not. Her eyes softened. Cole. He did not move closer, did not try to turn the moment into anything it was not. Instead, his voice remained steady and sincere. You do not owe me anything, he said. Not gratitude, not promises, not expectation. But if you ever choose to keep me in your life, not out of fear or struggle, but out of trust, then I would be honored. Maya closed her fingers around the wristband, pressing it gently to her chest. I want you in my life, she said. Not because I need saving, because I finally feel like myself again, and I want you to be part of that. A soft breath escaped him, almost like relief. They stood together at the window, watching the snow fall over the city. No grand declarations. No dramatic promises. Just two people sharing the quiet warmth they had earned through kindness, patience, and respect. Outside, the winter lights shimmered. Inside, something hopeful settled into place, gentle but undeniable. It was not the beginning of a rescue. It was the beginning of something real.